Welcome to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. When you look at Star Wars, there are 3 fight scenes that I think define the entire saga. Now, these are maybe not the best scenes or even the best fights, but they are the most crucial for telling the larger story and exploring its themes. These 3 scenes are Anakin versus Obi-Wan, Vader versus Luke, and Kylo Ren versus Rey. Now, although they're set decades apart, these scenes contain one singular story thread that ties the larger story together, and they're each tied to a different element: fire, air, and water. This has significance that I'll discuss as we go along. Now, you'll notice that each fight follows the same basic structure, composed of 3 sections that slowly escalate towards an emotional conclusion. You know, it's like poetry, they sort of rhyme. Let's start with Anakin versus Obi-Wan. This fight is unusual among the others because we'd been anticipating it since 1977.
When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, Darth.
Then, in the Return of the Jedi novelization, Obi-Wan told Luke that Vader fell into a molten pit. So for 22 years, we imagined how this fight was going to play out, and it turned out to be far more large and operatic than I ever imagined. The fight begins on the landing pad just after Anakin has force-choked Padme, essentially drawing away her life force. Obi-Wan has arrived to stop Anakin, but he's also hoping that he can redeem him back to the good side. The central theme of this fight is rage. Anakin believes that he can channel his anger into getting whatever he wants, including saving Padme. From the very first moment, Anakin is always attacking, using rage as a weapon. Now, all 3 of these fights also intercut with other scenes. In this case, the battle between Yoda and the Emperor, which offers comic relief and keeps the Mustafar fight from dragging on too long. Anakin is more powerful than Obi-Wan, so Kenobi has to outsmart him, first by breaking his chokehold, and then by clotheslining him, essentially using his own rage against him. Then he leaps onto a thin railing, forcing Anakin to concentrate on balance instead of offense. And then, how about this shot? According to the documentary Scene 158, this shot was first imagined by Steven Spielberg, who directed the previs for this sequence. Now, as this structure falls, Obi-Wan again outsmarts Anakin by realizing he'll need to seize the high ground first. Then he lands on a flying platform while Anakin balances precariously on a work droid. This foreshadows that he's about to become reliant on machinery to survive. After a brief dialogue exchange,
"From my point of view, the Jedi are evil!"
Obi-Wan outsmarts Anakin, again, by shifting the field of battle.
"I have the high ground!"
Obi-Wan was playing defense through this fight because he was still hoping to redeem Anakin. So when he says,
"Don't try it,"
he knows he's about to maim his friend. He pulled this same leap against Darth Maul, so he knows exactly how to counter it. And finally, he sees that his apprentice is truly gone forever.
"It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them! Bring balance to the Force! Not leave it in darkness!"
But in the end, he can't bring himself to finish him off. When he looks down, he doesn't just see a Sith Lord. He sees this little boy who trusted him, and his own words are echoing in his mind.
"I have failed you, Anakin."
So this entire battle is essentially Obi-Wan failing to bring Anakin back from the darkness. That's important for later. The battle is framed as Anakin's descent into a fiery hell. This shot, showing the sun fading behind Obi-Wan, illustrates that, yes, he represents the good side of the Force, but also he's filmed from a low angle, showing that this is the height that Anakin is about to fall from. The fight starts high in a fortress and slowly falls, but Obi-Wan always retains the high ground, the moral upper hand. The real game-changing moment comes here, when a wave of lava erupts onto a bridge. This is what ultimately brings the structure down and thrusts Anakin down into hell. And this is actually Anakin's fault. Here, when he lashes out and destroys these controls. This removes the shields protecting the complex, paving the way for this machinery to break off just as Anakin's about to lose his limbs, and for Anakin to fall into the lava and become Darth Vader. So, in this fight, just like in life, Anakin's rage was actually his downfall. Now, this fight is also a clash between worlds, the old ways of the Jedi and the new order of Palpatine and the Sith. They're surrounded by dead separatist leaders, fighting among the ashes of the old conflict while seeding the next war to come. Now, as I said before, each of these battles is tied to an ancient element. This one is fire. Fire represents passion, anger, violence, and change. This fire burns away the Clone Wars and creates the Empire. It burns away Anakin Skywalker and creates Darth Vader. Now, to research this video, I rewatched a lot of Star Wars movies, so I decided to give myself a big screen experience at home with my brand new Nebula Capsule 2 limited edition R2-D2 projector, the sponsor of this week's video. Isn't that right, R2? He really makes that startup sound, it's so cool. I love this projector. It's the most legitimately cool thing that I own. It's a portable pocket cinema featuring Android 9.0. You can personalize it with over 5,000 apps like Hulu, Twitch, and so many more. So you can watch Star Wars on Disney Plus or ScreenCrush on YouTube. This little guy is totally portable, speakers are built in, and the battery will run for 2.5 hours. It's great for the backyard, bedtime, or even sheet forts. It also supports Chromecast, easily connects to your smartphone, and supports Google Assistant. It also looks really cool and fits right in with my other Star Wars collectibles. If you want a special Star Wars gift for someone on May the 4th, or you just want to treat yourself, you have to buy this projector. And they're offering ScreenCrush fans a $50 discount. Just click the link in the description, enter the discount code, and buy this amazing all-in-one home theater. Now let's look at the next scene, Luke versus Vader in The Empire Strikes Back. It's hard to understand in 2020 how anticipated this duel was. The first Star Wars was a straightforward fairy tale of good triumphing over evil. Luke and Vader never met face to face in that film. As far as Luke knows, Vader's just the guy who killed his master and his father. So according to the Space Samurai Code, Luke needs to avenge his honor. Luke had been training for this fight for the entire movie. The audience was ready to see him kick Vader's ass. And Luke is angry and he's eager to prove himself.
I am ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
He enters the carbon freezing chamber from below. As the challenger, he has to rise to face the champion, Vader. And we see this constantly throughout the fight. Vader, having learned his lesson, almost always has the high ground. Also, Luke is the aggressor. He draws his lightsaber first and throws everything he has into his initial swings. Vader holds back, using his superior skill to gauge Luke's strength. So when Luke falls down the stairs, he's suddenly bathed in red light. This both echoes the duel in Mustafar, but also indicates that Luke is in danger of falling into a fiery hell, just like Anakin. Remember, Vader's goal is not to defeat Luke. He's only trying to pin him down and capture him, and to get a measure of his skills. His end goal is to duplicate the result of his duel in Mustafar, to turn a Jedi to the dark side. Luke briefly recuperates by blasting Vader with carbon gas, which probably interfered with his breathing apparatus. Then Luke finally obtains the high ground as Vader disappears. But this is a feint. On to the second stage of the fight. In the chamber below, Luke is forced into a smaller space, like an animal that's being pinned in for capture. Notice, we hear Darth Vader before we ever see him, the audio equivalent of seeing a shark's fin cresting the ocean's surface. Vader is no longer an opponent. He's become a force of nature. We see that Vader was only toying with Luke. He doesn't even need a saber to defeat him. He lowers his weapon and uses the environment to wear him down, metaphorically closing in the walls. And this is where we hear music for the first time in the duel. In contrast with the operatic duel in Revenge of the Sith, this fight is more about building suspense, drawing in the viewer with quiet moments, the same way Vader draws Luke closer, and then finally unleashing with his attacks, timed to the Imperial March. A window shatters and Luke is sucked out into the vacuum. Notice he's subject to the elements, but Vader isn't. Vader is always in control. Just like in Revenge of the Sith, there are cutaways during this fight as well, but this time to the other rebels losing Han and escaping Cloud City. But these scenes actually enhance the tension in Luke's fight. In the first scene, Leia fails to rescue Han. In the second, she escapes. But this leaves Luke all alone to fight Vader. We also realize that they didn't actually need Luke's help. Yoda and Obi-Wan were right. Luke shouldn't be here. All he's managed to do is fall into Vader's trap. So when Luke re-enters the chamber, Vader appears out of nowhere to finish him off. He looks twice the size of Luke, like they filmed from far away and used a long lens to zoom in, a camera trick used to make objects look bigger and closer than they are. Narrow pathways are terrific settings for fights because they force the hero to face danger head on. But in these duels, they also force the heroes to confront their emotions. Now Vader starts fighting more like Anakin. He's the aggressor, pushing forward, forcing his opponent onto a bridge. He's learned from his duel with Obi-Wan. But when he mentions him,
It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
this enrages Luke, and for a moment, he catches Vader off guard. Maybe he can win this. Things are looking up. Luke might be able to pull this off. Oh, no, never mind, he lost his hand. It's over. Calling it, guys. It's over. And then, just like in Revenge of the Sith, there's a moment of dialogue to close out the duel, culminating in the reveal of a lifetime.
I am your father.
Now, this one line of dialogue is the linchpin of Star Wars. It solidifies the saga as a family story that's about redemption and not revenge. Vader's greatest weapon against Luke was never his lightsaber, it was this piece of information. The duel was never physical, it was psychological. Vader was never trying to beat Luke, only recruit him, and thematically, this fits perfectly with Revenge of the Sith. In that movie, Anakin severs the ties to his family. So in The Empire Strikes Back, he's trying to reforge those ties by giving Luke basically the same offer he gave Padme.
Destructive conflict.
And together
bring
you and I can
order
rule
to
the galaxy.
Luke is given the chance to kill the Emperor in the war and be reunited with his father. But, unlike his dad, he chooses to sacrifice his own life rather than fall to the dark side. Now, just as Mustafar was embodied by fire, Cloud City is embodied by the element air. Air can be a source of life, but also destruction, much like the Force itself. Air is deployed as a weapon throughout the fight. Vader wants to trap Luke using carbon gas until Luke turns it against him. Luke is sucked out of the window and put at a disadvantage by air, and he's surrounded by deafening winds during the reveal. Air can also fan a flame or extinguish it. Just like in this scene, Luke can choose to embrace the fire and anger of his father, or to snuff this fire out and redeem him. Luke doesn't succumb to temptation, but his nephew does, which brings me to the final crucial scene, Rey and Kylo's final battle. Now let's talk about The Rise of Skywalker, a movie I dislike so much I made a video where I yell at a puppet of J.J. Abrams.
The devil is bad, kids.
Yeah, but look, by making him the devil, you remove the culpability of your characters. Suddenly, Kylo Ren's not held accountable for aiding in genocide, because the devil made him do it. Now, much as I dislike elements of that movie, Rey and Kylo's final duel is a fitting capstone to the story being told in all the other films. At this point, it's been revealed that they're each actually fighting against the same power, Palpatine. He's been influencing Kylo Ren for all these years, and Kylo Ren wants to reject the Emperor's influence and rule the galaxy for himself. You know, like Vader. While Rey has discovered that she's carrying the blood of the Emperor.
You're his granddaughter. You are a Palpatine.
And so she's afraid that she's going to cross a moral line in the name of committing good. You know, like Vader. So each of these characters thematically mirror both Vader, Luke, and Obi-Wan in various ways. And this dynamic creates a very different lightsaber battle than we've ever seen before. They each want the other's help defeating the Emperor, but for very different reasons. What results is a battle that's a mix of the first two that we discussed. Kylo wants to capture Rey like Vader wanted to capture Luke, while Rey wants to save Kylo as Obi-Wan wanted to save Anakin. He tries to impress upon her how alike they are, and that they're both outcasts.
The dark side is in our nature. Surrender to it.
And this plays into what her dark mirror self just told her.
Don't be afraid of who you are.
So, in this fight, Rey's primary goal is to not give in to the dark side, like she did when she fake killed Chewbacca. Like Luke, she begins as the aggressor, but Kylo, like Vader, holds back so he can capture her. He even intentionally falls, paralleling the trap that Vader set for Luke in Cloud City. But notice, this is the only one of these fights that travels upward instead of down. While Mustafar was about Anakin's fall into hell, this fight is about Rey and Ben Solo rising from the dark side. They even begin inside the relics of the Emperor's throne room. The physical location symbolizes where they begin emotionally, under the influence of Palpatine. The duel takes place on top of a narrow strip of wreckage, a parallel to the walkway where Luke was forced to confront the truth about Vader. In Rise of Skywalker, this setting is forcing Kylo Ren to confront the truth about himself. These crashing waves mirror the waves of lava on Mustafar. Now, water, much like air, gives life, but it can also be destructive. There's also a parallel here with the Force itself, having a dark side and a light side. As they struggle to avoid the waves, Rey is isolated from Finn. Just as Luke was drawn away from his support network, Rey is alone with Kylo Ren. The crashing waves are also a symbol of emotional turmoil. So as Rey leaps above the water, this symbolizes her attempt to maintain an emotional balance and not give in to the dark side, while Kylo simply strolls through the destruction because he is ruled by his emotions. The two of them seem evenly matched until Kylo stops holding back. Then, just like in Empire Strikes Back, the score kicks in as the bad guy gains an advantage, and Rey realizes that she's not strong enough to defeat the darkness within him. To defeat Kylo Ren, she may have to draw from the dark side. Just like in the other two fights, there are cutaways during the battle. Except, now we cut to Leia's final moments, as she surrenders her life force to purge the dark side from her son. Now this book ends Revenge of the Sith. Anakin's fall began when he stole life away from Leia's mother, Padme. And now Leia's giving her life to save Anakin's grandson. Rey strikes out in anger, using Kylo's red saber to defeat him. But, as she learns immediately, the victory was meaningless. Leia, without fighting, has won the battle. Rey relied on anger, passion, and the dark side of the Force to achieve a physical victory. But Kylo's soul was saved through an act of sacrifice, just as Obi-Wan Kenobi failed to save Anakin by using brute force.
I have failed you, Anakin.
But his son redeemed him by tossing aside his weapon. This duel is embodied by the element water. This symbolizes purity, healing, and emotional release. These two claw their way out of the Death Star wreckage to symbolically escape the Emperor's influence, and then they enter the surface where they can heal. It also parallels the fight on Mustafar, but instead of causing destruction like Anakin, they rise above it. The water extinguishes the fires of Anakin's rage that were first ignited on Mustafar, and now, just as Anakin used the Force to take life away from Padme, Rey uses it to restore life to her grandson. Afterwards, Kylo has a reckoning with his father. Now the waves are calm, representing the inner peace and balance that he has finally achieved.
Kylo Ren is dead.
So this battle brings the Skywalker story full circle. Anakin's descent began as a way to save his loved ones from dying, but in the end, it took a loved one's death to purge the darkness from his family. And you'll notice that in Star Wars, no one ever really wins by kicking ass. Final victory is always achieved through sacrifice and love. And that's why the fourth element, Earth, isn't represented by a fight. It's symbolized by a planet. In Star Wars, Earth is represented by Tatooine. This desert planet is often a symbol of home, a place where characters have meals, grow their families, bury their dead, and are reunited with their loved ones. So, the final act of the saga, burying the sabers, signifies that the conflict is finally over and balance has been achieved. But that's just my take on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.